Some heroes carry rifles. Some command entire armies. But tonight, a military base, a home to hundreds of soldiers, survived because one man carried something far more powerful. Something that no weapon can match. Pure, unyielding courage. The story begins in darkness, a night shattered by the roar of an inferno. He had been miles away, attending a high-level briefing, completely unaware of the disaster unfolding. Now, his truck sped through the night, every mile closing the distance to a home that might no longer exist. The commander gripped his seat, his knuckles white, his eyes fixed on the hellish orange glow painting the horizon. His men, his family, were trapped inside that burning nightmare. As the truck screeched to a halt just outside the perimeter, the heat slammed into him like a physical blow. A furnace door thrown wide open. The base was gone. It was a scene from the apocalypse. Flames clawed at the sky, devouring buildings one by one. The air crackled with the terrifying sound of ammunition cooking off in the armory. Each pop a small, deadly explosion. Metal groaned and twisted as structures collapsed into heaps of fiery ruin. He braced himself for what he was about to see. He expected death. He expected catastrophic loss. He expected to walk through a graveyard of his own making. But what he found instead left him utterly stunned, speechless, his mind unable to process the sight. Through the thick, choking smoke, shapes began to emerge from the heart of the fire. They weren't specters or ghosts. They were men. Soldiers, limping, coughing, their faces black with soot, leaning on each other for support as they stumbled out of the inferno. They were alive. Against every impossible odd, against every law of nature and probability. They were alive, and leading them wasn't an officer. It wasn't a seasoned squad leader or a decorated veteran. It was a medic. His uniform was torn and scorched, his arms raw with burns. But his eyes, they blazed with a fierce, unwavering determination that seemed to push back the very flames around him. He was carrying one unconscious soldier on his back, while dragging two more by their gear, his body straining with an effort that seemed superhuman. The commander froze, his boots feeling rooted to the ground. V could only stare in disbelief as the medic guided the wounded towards safety, one agonizing step at a time. This was impossible. How could anyone have survived this? It all began with a single, catastrophic explosion. A spark in the fuel depot had ignited a chain reaction, and within moments, the flames had leaped to the nearby barracks, turning wooden structures into inescapable traps. Soldiers, sleeping in their bunks, were suddenly engulfed in fire and smoke. Panic erupted. The exits were blocked by fire, the windows barred. It was a tomb. The medic had been outside when it happened. He could have run, he could have saved himself. Any sane person would have. The fire was spreading too fast, the danger absolute. They heard their cries. He heard the screams of his brothers trapped inside, and in that moment, he made a choice. He chose to turn his back on safety and walk directly into hell. What followed was an act of almost unbelievable bravery. With no time for tools, he used his own body, smashing through windows with his bare arms, ignoring the slicing glass. He crawled on his belly under collapsing, burning roofs, the heat searing his skin. He navigated smoke-filled hallways where the air itself was poison, pulling unconscious soldiers from their bunks and dragging them through the maze of fire. He didn't stop. Not when the flames licked at his uniform and burned his skin. Not when the toxic smoke crushed his lungs, leaving him gasping for every breath. Not even when other soldiers who had escaped begged him, screamed at him, to stay outside, telling him it was suicide to go back in. But he ignored them. Again and again and again, he disappeared back into the roaring blaze. And each time he emerged, like a figure from a legend, he was carrying another survivor. Just as the commander and his convoy arrived, the medic emerged from the inferno one last time, too. He had a young private slung over his shoulders, and he was dragging another badly injured soldier by the hand. He carefully laid them down on the ground, away from the heat, and took a precious second to check their breathing, to make sure they were stable. Only then did his body finally give out. He collapsed to his knees, his strength utterly spent. The commander rushed to his side, grabbing him by the shoulders, his voice choked with emotion. "You did it. You saved them all." The medic coughed, black soot clouding his breath, and whispered, his voice a hoarse rasp, "No one left behind, sir." Seconds later, the last barracks he had just exited exploded in a final, terrifying fireball, sending a shower of ash and embers into the night sky. If he had been just 1 second later, those last 2 men would be gone. As fire crews finally arrived to battle the remaining blazes, a surreal scene unfolded. Medics tended to the wounded, but incredibly, every single soldier was accounted for. Every single one was alive. The commander walked among his men, his eyes wet with tears. He didn't bother to hide, show. He had been taught that leadership was about rank, about giving orders from a position of authority. But that night, he learned a profound lesson. True leadership isn't rank. It's not about the insignia on your collar. It's about sacrifice. He found the medic sitting alone, away from the others, his body trembling from shock and exhaustion, staring silently into the flames. The commander knelt beside him, placing a hand on his shoulder. "You didn't just save their lives tonight," he said, his voice thick. "You saved this family." The medic looked up, his eyes weary but clear, and simply whispered, "Just doing my job, sir." His story spread like wildfire, first through the military, and then across the nation. People cheered for him, they saluted his image on the news, they cried hearing of his incredible courage. He never called himself a hero, he never sought any recognition. But to the dozens of soldiers who breathe today because of him, to the families who got their sons, husbands and fathers back, he became more than a hero. He became a legend. Thanks for watching. For more incredible stories of courage and sacrifice, make sure to like, share and subscribe to our channel.